Raider Nation, things just got heavy in Las Vegas. We just took another big hit. There were fresh cuts and roster moves with a defensive piece shown the door and a veteran in the trenches let go. The defense melted down. The offense looked stuck, even with a high-priced play caller running the show. The front office was under fire with a major decision behind the scenes. The offensive line was patched together. A rookie stayed glued to the sideline, and to top it off, a public message dropped that stirred up controversy and caught every fan off guard. Honestly, it almost sounds like a joke given what was just confirmed. But before we unpack all the details, let me talk to you for a second. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It is completely free, and it keeps this fan-driven coverage alive. While you are here, hit like, because that is what tells YouTube to push this conversation to even more people in Raider Nation. And jump in the comments too. Let me know if you are confident, furious, or just flat out confused, because this space is yours. Take a look at this first situation, Raider Nation. The Raiders got punched in the mouth again in primetime by the Cowboys, losing 33-16, and right after that came the roster shakeup. The franchise waived safety Chris Smith II and pulled veteran offensive lineman Leroy Watson off the practice squad. It might look like a minor move if you only stare at the box score, but for anyone who lives and breathes the silver and black, it screams two things: frustration with where this team is, and a somewhat desperate attempt to tweak anything they can touch. It is tough to watch. Smith was a fifth-round pick by Dave Ziegler in 2023 out of Georgia, and he came in with that late-round steal vibe. In reality, though, we barely saw him on defense. 9 games, almost everything on special teams, and defensive snaps were basically a mirage. And that is where every fan's dilemma kicks in. If a guy cannot get real snaps on a defense that is already limited, is he really that far off, or does this staff not know how to maximize the roster? To be honest with you, I do not have a lot of faith in this coaching staff's evaluations right now. It feels like players turn into jersey numbers before they ever get a chance to turn into answers on the field, and that drives me crazy. On top of that, the team is already leaving the door cracked for him to possibly come back on the practice squad. It is that we do not want you up here, but maybe we want you down there if nobody else grabs you kind of vibe. It feels like a plan that never fully commits, a bet that never really closes. At the same time, it also shows that nobody on the bottom of this roster has a guaranteed seat. If you are a depth guy and you do not deliver in practice and on special teams, it is goodbye. Here, and only here, you are getting this Raiders fan angle, reading these small moves as a thermometer of the chaos inside the building. And Leroy Watson sends a message too. He was brought in back in October for the practice squad with a background as a starter somewhere else, a hopeful depth piece for the line. He never saw the field in Vegas. Then, after another night where the trenches got smoked, the move is to cut a backup offensive lineman. It feels almost too symbolic, like they are spinning the smaller pieces while the real problem stays sitting in the same chair. I know you are thinking the same thing. This is not how you fix a broken offensive line. And while these names come and go, what is left for us is the feeling of a defense left hanging and an offense with no identity. The team got steamrolled by the Cowboys. The unit that had been holding things together fell apart, and the answer still came in the form of waivers and end-of-roster cuts. Drop a comment and tell me if you see this as the beginning of a real cleanup or just a band-aid on a broken roster, because like it or not, these moves plug directly into what is happening on offense with Chip Kelly and this losing streak that is exposing a much bigger problem. Honestly, the part that hurts the most in this stretch is watching the Raiders' offense look the way it does. We watched the front office drop serious money on Chip Kelly, the third offensive coordinator in 3 years. Like he was the guy who would unlock everything. Then the ball is snapped, and what do we see? Risky calls behind an offensive line that has been shaky for a long time, barely any real protection for Geno Smith, and almost no respect for the run game. It is that mix of stubbornness and wishful thinking that wears down any fan. The O-line was already a problem last season, maybe even earlier, and it still feels like it is held together with tape. There is not enough talent, not enough depth, and not enough chemistry. People will say the scheme can help, but when it seems like someone is running free into the backfield on almost every dropback, no scheme can save that. You watch Geno under constant pressure, you watch Ashton Jeanty trying to run with no lanes at all, and you are left thinking, there is no way this offense functions like this. And then the team chooses to throw the ball way more than it runs it. I would not even do that in Madden with this line. Seriously. Against the Cowboys, the choice was crystal clear. 42 passes, basically no commitment to the ground game, and Geno himself finishing with more rushing yards than Jeanty. That is not an accident, that is the plan. In Pete Carroll's own words, it was heavy play action, looking for big plays, forcing the ball to Brock Bowers and other weapons even while the protection was falling apart. To be straight with you, I get wanting to lean into your playmakers, but doing that while ignoring that this offensive line might be the worst in the league right now is bordering on reckless. It feels like this staff lives in a parallel universe where pressure does not exist. Carroll said afterward that he is not worried about pleasing people with the run-pass balance, that all he cares about is moving the ball. But moving the ball is not just passing yardage in isolation. It is sustaining drives, controlling the clock, protecting a defense that is already gassed, and once again, we saw the same script. A few explosive plays, the offense looks fun for 2 drives, they hit the red zone, everything falls apart, the sacks pile up, they leave without touchdowns, and hand the momentum right back. I know you are thinking exactly what I am thinking. You cannot keep running this script and expect a different ending. That is the scariest part of this losing streak. It is not just a limited roster. It is a stubborn philosophy. Only here you get this raw Raiders fan read, because the truth is it looks like this staff does not trust its own run game even when the situation screams for patience. Let me know in the comments if you think this is just a bad stretch or the sign of a much deeper problem, because what is happening higher up the chain with the people running football operations and the future of this staff makes this whole conversation even heavier. Now let us talk about what is happening upstairs, in the part of the building that runs football for the Raiders. While the team is falling apart on the field, reports started coming out that the front office group is safe, even with a record of 2-8 and a scorched earth feeling around the franchise. John Spytek, who arrived with a strong reputation from Tampa, is still backed as the guy to build this thing, with Tom Brady and the rest of the power structure trusting him. And the question burning in every fan's mind is simple. Are they betting on the right people or just punting the real problem down the road? The situation is pretty contradictory. On one hand, it makes sense to give time to a general manager who put together a strong back office staff, from scouts to analysts, a structure built to think long term. He is not a rerun of someone like Tom Telesco. He did not arrive tied at the hip to a specific coach, and in theory, he can pick the next head coach when this Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly era ends. On the other hand, we definitely cannot pretend he has not made mistakes. Ignoring the offensive line as badly as they did was huge, and doubling down on Geno Smith with a trade and a big extension now weighs on the salary cap and on the fan base. To be honest with you, I still do not know if this is a real long-term vision or just stubbornness dressed up as patience. Ari Meirov reported that the idea inside the building is to build the right way, without blowing everything up every single year, and that the front office as a whole is protected. Meanwhile, the coaching staff is under the spotlight. The special teams coordinator is already gone, and now the rumor mill is directly focused on Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. The vibe is basically this. Spytek deserves a full cycle, but the on-field staff might not survive that long. Only here you hear this mix of hope and frustration from the silver and black side of the stands, because it is hard to reconcile the stability talk with what we see every Sunday. The problem is that Carroll seems to be living in an alternate reality. The team is 2-8, getting blown out, the defense is giving up everything, the offense is stuck, and he keeps talking like they are just one piece away from a playoff chase. There is no real push to give heavy snaps to rookies, no real commitment to testing young players with upside. It is always the veteran getting the nod first. He misread this roster's talent level badly. That is obvious. And he insists on a plan that does not deliver wins now or development for tomorrow. It is exhausting. And then you get to the piece that could blow everything open. At some point, Brady and Mark Davis are going to have to decide whether they give Spytek full power, including the authority to change the man on the sideline, because you cannot keep talking about building the right way while sticking with the same mindset that still believes this veteran core is magically going to flip a switch. Tell me in the comments if you think this patience with the front office makes sense, because the way this staff has handled the young guys and the offensive line ties directly into the next controversial decision that leaked out after the Cowboys game. The strangest part of this whole story is how the offensive line turned into a bad science experiment right in the middle of the storm. With Jackson Powers-Johnson basically done for the season, everybody expected rookie Caleb Rogers to get a real shot against the Cowboys. Pete Carroll himself had hinted he would get some run. Then, when it mattered, here comes the twist. Rogers shows up inactive, Jordan Meredith moves from center to right guard, and Will Putnam is thrown in as the starting center. It feels like a joke to anyone who watches this team every week. You You already know how it looked on the field. The O-line got overwhelmed. Pressure from everywhere, no real run game, no rhythm on offense, and fans are left with that question stuck in their throat. If the team was already sitting at 2-7 before the game, why not use the moment to develop the rookie at the position he was drafted to play? The leak after the game brought the official explanation. According to people inside, the staff tried to start the week with Rodgers running as the first-team guard, but he really struggled in practice, and the other young lineman, Charles Grant, was apparently still way too raw to see the field. It feels like the same rookie storyline in Vegas all over again. To be straight with you, I get that practice performance matters. You cannot just toss a totally lost kid into the fire because the season has gone off the rails, but you also cannot pretend that the version of the line that actually played was any kind of safe solution. Carroll said they spent the week trying different combinations, moving pieces around, and that in the end they felt Meredith sliding back to guard was the best way to go. Best for who, though? Best for the staff to sleep at night looking at the depth chart, or best for us, watching Geno get crushed in primetime? He doubled down on the usual competition speech, saying they would love to get Caleb and Charles on the field, but that they have to prove in practice that they are ready first. Fine, it sounds good in a press conference, but in reality, we keep seeing underperforming veterans staying on the field week after week without losing snaps. Meanwhile, rookies are stuck in that "your time will come someday" script. Only here you get this Raiders fan perspective. That whole "he plays when he is ready" line becomes the perfect excuse to keep everything the same, even when what is on the field is clearly not good enough. It is exhausting. And what really bothers people is how this decision fits the overall mood around the team. A roster that is not winning, a broken O-line, a head coach who talks about development but acts like he is one win away from the top of the conference. Drop your take in the comments, because I really want to know if you would have rolled the dice with the rookie anyway or followed this conservative path, because like it or not, this hyper-protective approach with young players lines up perfectly with the way Carroll is shielding Geno Smith, and that means the discussion is no longer just about the offensive line, it is about the heart of the entire offense. And that brings us to the most sensitive spot of all, quarterback. After one more ugly night against the Cowboys with a pick in prime time and the offense sputtering again, Pete Carroll went to the podium and doubled down on his belief in Geno Smith. No hesitation. He is incredible. He will get through this. The full public support package we have all heard before. But from where we sit, with fans looking at the standings and the tape, that faith is starting to sound more like stubbornness than an actual plan. It is tough to say, but patience is running out. Against Dallas, Geno finished with 27 completions on 42 attempts, 238 yards, 1 touchdown, and a passer rating around 77, all while playing behind a Frankenstein line with Stone Forsythe, Putnam, and the rest. It was not the worst game of his career, and you can see that he competes, tries to carry the load, and does not hide. To be honest with you, I respect that competitive side a lot, but respect does not erase 13 interceptions in 10 games, tied with Tua Tagovailoa at the top of the league in picks, and it does not justify being near the bottom of the NFL in passer rating and QBR in the neighborhood of guys who have already been benched somewhere else. Reality hits hard. The Raiders' offense right now revolves around a quarterback who gives the ball away to the other team often enough to blow up any game plan. Geno himself went into full self-blame mode in his presser, saying, "Put it all on me. Your kid messes up at school, blame me," turning it almost into a meme. But we do not need punchlines here. We need ball security and smarter decisions. Carroll, on the other side, stuck with the idea that the real issue is protection, that they have to help Geno more and fix what is around him. Only here you get this from a Raiders fan's seat. Yes, the protection is awful, but using that as a shield every single time becomes an easy way to delay a conversation that the whole locker room can feel coming. I know you feel that weight too. At the same time, the script for the future is already being written. This team is sitting at 2-8, projected to hold a high pick in the 2026 draft with a real chance to land in the top 5, in a class loaded with quarterback prospects and Geno's contract, while big becomes more manageable to move on from down the line. Behind the scenes, Aiden O'Connell is back on the practice field after his wrist injury, getting reps against the starting defense, while Kenny Pickett holds the backup spot, and a place on the 53-man roster could open up thanks to those end-of-roster cuts. Officially, Carroll keeps talking about defending his guy and deciding whether to activate O'Connell now or later. Unofficially, every fan feels like this final stretch of the season just turned into a massive test about what the Raiders want to be at the most important position on the field. Let me know in the comments if you would ride with Geno all the way, or if you would already start setting the stage for the next face of the franchise, because in the end, all of this says a lot about where this team is stuck today and what kind of Raiders we are willing to accept watching. Sometimes it feels like the Raiders are stuck in an endless loop. End of roster cuts, a stubborn offense, blind trust in the staff, a torn-up offensive line, and a quarterback trying to keep a sinking ship afloat. Even so, Raider Nation is still here demanding more, hurting and reminding everyone that the silver and black is not supposed to get comfortable with losing. To be honest with you, this is a turning point moment. Either this team finally faces reality or it becomes just another footnote. So jump in the comments because this space belongs to everyone who lives Raider Nation.